The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. It is Wednesday in a rib.
Well, thank you for everyone. Thanks for watching, everyone. And we're here today after another council meeting. And
Yes.
and it was more like a kiss ass meeting, to be honest. I mean,
Should we do the numbers first, CJ?
well, do we have to? I guess so. Hold on. The computer's running so slow this morning. It's unbelievable. Okay. For Tuesday, we now have 629 confirmed cases in Fall River, and we still have 8 deaths and 212 cleared. Bristol County has 4,235 and 70,271 statewide. And the mayor wants everyone to know that we'll see you Wednesday at 7 p.m. outside your home. Remember to social distance to show support for first line responders. So it's definitely going to be interesting.
And don't forget, today is Wednesday.
Yes, it is.
Wear your masks. If you don't have a mask in a bag like this, cut a couple of holes in it. I think they'll let you do that. As long as it's made of cloth. They, oh, look, DJ's got it. Ah, it's you good. I actually got my mask, but I washed it, and it's hanging. I got one of my masks, but
see, here's the problem. Here's the problem with wearing a mask. People touch it. Touch it. They constantly touch it. Because it's
now, some people, do you notice that some people can't talk with a mask?
Yes, I can't talk with the mask on either. Exactly. So it's definitely very interesting. So
don't forget, you get arrested, and you may get arrested and get a fine because Charlie Baker and the other Nazis they're honest. It's honest. They don't care what happens. But before we go on, I got to take a point of personal privilege here. We have to say hello. Yesterday, when I was exercising the dog, somebody stopped by and told us that we have a viewer who watches us all the time, one of our loyal viewers, and we really appreciate all of you loyal viewers. But we have to say hello to Barbara Travassos. So, hello, Barbara. He says you watch us every night at 5. So tonight at 5, you have a shout out from CJ and I, and thank you for your loyalty to the show. And we love to have you guys, whether you love us or hate us. We don't care as long as you watch.
that's for sure. I mean, without you, we're just talking to ourselves here, and we know that we're not talking to ourselves. I mean, I got a phone call yesterday from a viewer, and he every so often he calls, and I think it's great, and we have a nice conversation. And he said, "I've taken on your mantra, I've taken on your motto, and I tell people all the time, stay angry." So we're reaching some people, and that's a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. So I appreciate our viewers too.
CJ, because as you said, at the council meeting and everything else, and there's some serious look. I know we had a few audio issues and stuff, but we talked about the selection committee, and I guess you ferreted out the names of that committee prior to even their being made public.
Yeah, we were working on that for a while because it was very interesting to see what happened. And the mayor was getting heat because he didn't release the names of the people who had been serving on this committee. But here's this committee. The Chief of Police Advisory Committee includes the following community members: Beatrice Furtado, nurse; Lisa Furtado, Fall River Public School educator; Rosemary LaPointe, Father Kelly Park Neighborhood Association; Robert Nemkovich, Reverend of Blessed Trinity Parish; Ron Rusin, business owner; John Sylvia, Niagara Neighborhood Association. Peter Silva, retired state police officer. Now, just out of curiosity, who's the only person on that committee do you think had any qualifications whatsoever to select a police chief?
Well, obviously the state police officer, but we don't even know if he was a ranking officer, because even then, I've seen people being interviewed, and in many communities they bring in out of town chiefs, and whether they're state police, the heads of state police and local police departments, because obviously being the chief of the department is far different than being a member of a department. It's a completely different skill set, and who can evaluate that? Somebody it's like saying in the military that we'll have a bunch of PFCs interview for a general of the army to run battles. Policing is a profession, as all professions are, that have very unique things that you have to deal with. Whether it's the jargon, whether it's the way things are done, they have ideas that are new and state of the art. And people who are in the field and at that capacity understand what is necessary, and they can also evaluate the leadership capabilities. And look, with all due respect to this committee, and look, I wouldn't have any problem with having a committee of this makeup for an oversight committee on the police department, because many communities have had that done when they have problems with police brutality, et cetera, so they have a civilian review committee. But this is BS. And it also calls into question some very serious issues. Ron Rusin, for example, I know that they said he was quick to say that if he was a friend of the mayor, that the appointee was a friend of the mayor, after that, nothing to do with it. Well, listen, and I'm not saying this would happen or anybody, but let's face it, what does a nurse know about policing? How a police department is structured for maximum efficiency, what the new cutting edge things are doing, how they're manufacturing their department and getting a table of organization that maximizes its efficiency. Nothing. Now, if it was nursing, well, okay, she knows something about nursing. What does a pastor have to know about policing? Nothing. This becomes does the guy have a good personality, and do you like him? You can't evaluate his professional credentials. That's an impossibility. This is ridiculous. And the other issue that I have a major problem with, this is a what if, and I'm not saying any of these people on the committee, before everybody stops, they're going to beat us up anyway for this segment. And we don't care about that. But please do not say that we implied. We're just saying this is a what if. What if something happens to somebody that was on that committee? Is it out of the realm of possibility that one of those people at some point in time when they need something from the police department calls up the police chief and reminds them that they were responsible for his appointment? This is one of the reasons you have out of the community review boards of senior officers. The police chief from Boston doesn't need a favor from the police chief in Fall River. And besides that, if they have a professional courtesy deal with us, all departments do. But everybody on that committee now can turn around at some point and say to the chief, remember, I got you the way you are. I made the vote for you. I was with you. And that's not good. This is one of the reasons I've always been about civil service, public safety department heads. The police chief should be a civil service appointee. That way, you're picking from the top 3 candidates in that department who had the highest test score. So the three people that have the highest test score are interviewed, and then they should be interviewed by professionals.
I agree.
Do it, and this is a political frankly, I don't care if I like the police chief. If he's keeping the city safe, I'm happy.
As long as he's doing his job. As long as he's doing his job.
And that's the key. The key is that, why? And look, we know, I believe you said John Sylvia from the Niagara neighborhood?
Yes.
I know John. John's a good guy.
I know John as well.
We had a conversation, and they got a show on this FR Media TV, and John's a good guy. He's a good neighborhood leader. But the fact is, when it's talking to a police chief, to select a police chief, how is he going to make that selection? That he gets along with them? He can't even determine whether he's going to like what this police chief does until he gets the job. And he can't really be the guy that selects him because he knows absolutely nothing about who the best candidate to do that job is. It's going to be based on a personality evaluation, not a professional evaluation.
Right. And we need to evaluate our department heads on their abilities and their experience, not upon, I had a coffee with the guy and he was a great guy. And the other issue behind this, and I don't know Jeff Cardoza firsthand. I've heard nothing but great things about him. The rank and file supports him. I'm assuming the unions support him. And he was a selection from when Dupere was put on to the department that gained a lot of support from the city councilors in that period of time. And a couple of those city councilors are still in place, and they exercised some, shall we say over, who was hired. The problem is, and they said it last night at the city council meeting, not one city councilor knew who was on this committee. Not one. I guess the only people who knew was probably Ann O'Neill Souza and the mayor. But allegedly, no city councilor knew who was on this committee. But the mayor did sit in on the interviews. And it was the same 15 questions asked to each candidate. Now, should the mayor have sat in those interviews? That's a call. Should he? Shouldn't he? I don't know. He appointed a committee to do this research. Why did he have to be there? The same reason why I asked, why has he had to be at the last two city council meetings? He doesn't need to be there. If they want a COVID report in the city council meeting, they can get it in writing like the rest of us get it from. But no, what happens is the mayor comes in, he sits down and talks, and all of a sudden, everybody has a bunch of other questions. And that could be something that happens at the interview. The mayor then met after each candidate and said, well, this is how I feel, blah, 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 blah. What do you think? How do you feel? We don't know what happened there. And again, that's the whole point. We don't know what happened there. Because
maybe it should have been public.
I agree, it should have been public.
And if they're going to do that, the mayor's going to sit in. We should have said that. And then the question, you said 15 questions. Now, who created those 15 questions?
Exactly.
Was it the review panel who have no police experience, or was it police professionals that drafted questions that were germane to being a police chief? And that's the key. Because listen, I went through a process. I interviewed the chief of the department, and I knew that obviously I wouldn't get it because of my union activities, and I was basically told that straight out. But I've seen this stuff when people who don't know anything. I saw a fire problem, and I had the same fire problem, and it was, and I'll tell you what, firefighters out there, it was a laundry room in a hospital. But the candidate they had pre-selected had gotten the question already. So it was how would you fight a fire in a laundry room? And the candidate that had selected and had gotten the question spent a half an hour talking about fighting a fire in an oxygen-enriched atmosphere, which they do have in hospitals, as you well know. But the thing is, the laundry room isn't an oxygen-enriched atmosphere. And I won't go into the tactics and strategy, but let me tell you, there was a deputy chief sitting in that interview who said he made a total disaster out of the fire problem, yet he became the chief. Why? Because he was pre-selected. But I have nothing, I've heard, I may know, and he was a captain, I believe, not a deputy chief. I think I may have run into him on my time on a job when he was probably a patrolman or a sergeant or something like that, went up the ranks. But I have respect for all of the candidates. They've done that job for a long time. They have ascended through the ranks, and they all deserve consideration. But my point is, they deserve consideration from their peers. When we go to court, we're supposed to have a jury of our peers. When you're interviewed for a public safety position, the top public safety position, you should be interviewed by a committee of your peers, not the general public. This is not a popularity contest, and I respect all those candidates. Look at the problem we had when we had a guy ascend from lieutenant to chief and never passing a captain's exam.
Right.
We all never fall out from that thing because he had no business getting that job. He was not qualified. The only thing he ever run was a dumpster fire and a car fire. And they were going to make him chief of the department because he's politically connected. We have to eliminate this from public safety. We cannot have a police chief or a fire chief answerable to a civilian committee or to a mayor, because you have to be his friend to get appointed. We should have a civil service protected chief who can turn around when the public safety is being jeopardized and stand up for the people. And that's what you have to have, like Leo Stapleton, because I'm going to tell you what happens. The evolution of politics, what happens. In Boston, the fire commissioner was always a former chief in Boston. You needed a minimum of 10 years experience at the chief officer level to be appointed the fire commissioner in Boston. So Leo Stapleton became the commissioner. He was one of the most well-known chiefs of the fire department. He wrote a book, 30 Years on the Line. Read it it's good reading. But when they made massive cuts to the Boston Fire Department, he stood up with the rank and file and said, "We cannot do this job with these kind of cuts, and I am going to give my men the order that if there's a fire in a building, ensure that the life safety has been protected, and then let the building burn and stop it from spreading, because we can't do an interior fire attack." He made that stance. He got a lot of political heat from the politicians, but guess what? He got his men back. But you know what the evolution happened? His son became the next commissioner, he was a chief officer. But then after that, they realized that if they had civil service people and they had people who were loyal to the public safety, that they couldn't do what they wanted to do. And then they changed the rules. You no longer need to have 10 years as a chief officer. You know, the next fire commissioner they appointed was a retired naval officer. So you tell me what a retired naval officer knows about fighting fires in the city of Boston. And that's what happens. Politicians want control of departments, especially public safety departments, and it's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Just like politicians don't want to ever be held accountable for what happens to them. Because look at the Senate. The Senate refuses to release Biden's any kind of material on Biden. Now, if that was you or I, the police could walk down to a judge, get a warrant, and get any information they needed to investigate a potential crime. But if you're a senator, they're blocking it. Biden said, let him go, but he knew the rest of the senators are going to say no. Why? Because if they opened up his records, we might start opening up the other senators' records and see all the dirt that they got locked away in a vault. again, we go into the political non-accountability. No matter what they do, they have diplomatic immunity. And that pisses me off. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, that was a long enough diatribe. Well, I want to get into a little bit of something that happened last night also at the city council meeting. As we talked about previously, Ian Schachne is being appointed collector treasurer. Now, several city councilors, I'm not going to call them out by name, made reference to the fact that they felt the city should have a collector and a treasurer as two separate positions, which is my position as well. But they said, but I'm going to support this appointment. But I still believe we need a separate collector and treasurer. If you believe we need a separate collector and treasurer, you don't support the appointment. You say no. And I don't want to hear, and I heard this from one of the city councilors, oh, I respect the man. He has great credentials, so on and so forth. I don't care how much of a nice guy he is. Because that same person who said he has great credentials and everything else said, but I don't support a collector treasurer as one position. But I understand we can't afford the two positions. How come we can't afford the two positions? We always were able to afford them before. Where did it come that we can't afford the two positions? Makes absolutely no sense. But what can you do? You know, the city council's there.
What can you do? Pay more taxes. That's what you can do. Because you know what's going to happen? They're going to pay him more because he's doing two jobs like that girl.
$105,000.
And then in a year or two, they'll hire somebody else.
Right. And he'll stay at the $105,000, and somebody else will make a $60,000 or $70,000 job.
That's right, exactly. Because, and as you said, shame on the councilors who say that. If you don't support something, you don't support it.
That's right.
I don't agree, but I'm going to vote for it. Well, if I don't agree with something, I don't vote for it.
That's a wishy-washy way of doing business. Okay, and that just shows you where these city councilors are and whether or not they should get your vote. Normally, I would call them out, but I'm not going to call these people out yet. I'm going to see what happens the rest of this term. But I'm telling you now, what they're doing is not correct, and they should be called out on it. They really should be.
Well, they're establishing this pseudo love fest. So now everything goes through because now they don't have Jaisal to hate.
Right, and what they're doing is they're kissing this mayor's ass. And you could tell in the meeting last night. As a matter of fact, somebody was posting on the meeting, because the meeting was aired on Facebook, which I was surprised at. But the meeting, they were posting, kiss ass central, kiss ass, this is all kiss ass. Look at all the ass kissing. This is ridiculous. I mean, they were commenting at the same time that this was going on. And the other thing that got me was, all of a sudden last night during the city council meeting, it went dark. The entire thing went dark. So I got a phone call when it went dark saying, did yours go dark? And I said, yes, it did. And they said, is the city so cheap that they're using the free version of Zoom? I said, I don't know. Maybe they are. Because with the free version, you're limited to 40 minutes. But I'm hoping they didn't use the free version. But they were recording it. So it should be interesting to see.
And I just got a text, and we have to look at this later, maybe for Frankie's show. I had something about the coronavirus 19 and the cover-up. So there's more breaking news. You know, if it's fake news, we'll have to evaluate it. But you're right, CJ. Listen, this is about we're gonna try to do the Goebbels method of telling a lie big enough, because we're gonna tell everybody that we all have to love each other to be effective. The mayor has to hold hands and go down and they huggy bear, kissy face with the council, and they all tell each other how wonderful they are, and and it's such a warm and fuzzy place. Well, guess what? When we started a Revolutionary War, it wasn't a warm and funny place. There were near fist fights, when they were meeting. People who were pro-England, the Tories, were fighting with the people. There was tremendous resistance. Part of government is having disagreements, because sometimes if there are violent disagreements, you come up with a middle ground that's actually better than both extremes. That's what happens. That's why I love England and the House of Commons. I love that place, because they get up and yell at each other and they argue. But guess what? That's part of the process. When everybody gets along, you got a problem. You become not people, you become sheeple.
And that, and that's what a lot of people are complaining about, because again, we've got an order that these are required starting today, and you can get up to, in some cities and towns, you can get $300. And I was reading an article just before we came on the air, and I read an article that said some cities want to charge $1,000 for not wearing this. And people are already looking for ways to, to not wear a mask. And what they're saying is, under the ADA, they don't have to wear it, and they can't be asked why. And they're right. The American with Disabilities Act says you cannot ask why somebody needs reasonable accommodation. So if wearing this mask is going to cause you a problem, you say, according to the ADA, I don't have to wear it. I need reasonable accommodation. That's my reasonable accommodation. And there's nothing you can do to make them wear it. The issue, though, is stores have the right to not let you in not wearing this. So remember that. It's going to be an interesting scenario.
But look, we've got, this is a scary position, because people do not, they're trying to convince people that everybody has to agree. And the last time everybody, my comment I make on a lot of these shows is, the last time everybody agreed that they were marching in goose step.
Yeah.
That's Nazi Germany. When you get everybody to follow along like a bunch of sheeple, then you got problems. And the thing is, our government is a disaster. You look at Biden. I cannot believe that the Senate refuses to release it, and nobody can make them do it. The
Right.
FBI can't get a warrant to get it.
Exactly, because it's exempt.
They're a protected species.
Yes, exactly. Hey, before we run out of time, because we're really running low here, last night a transfer was made from assessments to the school department, because the school department budget is $1.4 million short. $1.4 million short. So they transferred $1.2 million or $1.3 million from assessments, and Mary Sahadi concocted an entire story on how it's all right to do, but we'll probably need to transfer another $100,000 at the end of the year. This is getting to be a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
Chinese checkers with the money, baby. Chinese checkers.
Listen, let me tell you something, counsel, again, because I told you all this a few years ago when the school committee, and I told Mayor Coogan when he was school committeeman Coogan, I explained this. That line item for healthcare is absolute bullshit. We have a group healthcare, and they can't run under budget. They're only part of a whole. The whole is running under budget. We are running under budget as a whole. That is a separate entity. It should not be in a school department budget, but it's only there so they can play funny money and move money around. And Mary Patty get up there and lie again, misrepresent everything as she always does. And the council nods their head and accepts it all the time. So guess what? So far, I'm vastly unimpressed by the performance of this council so far.
I hear you, because believe me, after last night's meeting, I was ready to pluck the pins out of my ears, because I didn't want to hear it anymore. But this is what we got for a government, and the problem is, you elected this government, people. You put this government in, and now we have to deal with it. And whether you like these people or not, remember, it's not a personality contest. It's not vote for the guy you think is the best friend in the world, the guy who makes the best chow mein sandwich, the guy who does this, that, or the other thing. This is about your government. Who will do the job? And so far, the only person doing the job that I can see is Michelle Dion and Sean Cadine. And that doesn't say a lot for this council when only 2 out of the 9 are doing the job. Oh, and by the way, Mr. Mayor, when you sit in front of a bright window, you will always be dark screened on your camera, because the light behind you is blacking you out. So close your shades and blinds when you're doing a Zoom meeting or you're in front of your camera at home. That would help better. You don't need to try to figure out how to make the camera work. Hey, with that, we're out of time. Have a great day. We enjoy being here with you. Thanks for inviting us into your house. And remember, stay angry.